So it was a long day here in Web Summit, wasn't it? So stay seated, relax, and enjoy the last panel of the day here at the Corporate Innovation Summit stage, where we will talk about the right to data portability, and we will announce, as you see, I have an award in my hands, the winner of the third edition of My Data is Mine, which is an award that was established by Euroconsumers in 2020 to highlight the importance of data and an innovative approach to data protections in order to exploit data not only as a fundamental right, but also as an economic asset for the companies to offer better services at lower prices. So this is the first edition under the umbrella of a brand new initiative called the CEP, Consumer Empowerment Project, which is an initiative powered by Euroconsumers and Google to foster the dialogue between consumers, civil society, and company. And the third edition is dedicated to the data economy, how we can leverage on the data economy, how can we use the data to leverage the economy. And let me start with an instant poll with the audience. How many of you know what the right to data portability is about? So raise your hand. Okay, but this was the easy one. How many of you used the right to data portability in the last year to ask your provider to move the data to another provider to switch from a services to another? Much less. So this is a beautiful picture of the difference between theory and practice in consumer law. So I will start with the theory with Professor Francisco Pereira Coutinho from Nova Law School, where he's also the coordinator of the Observatory on Data Protection. Can you explain in a nutshell what is the right to data portability about and why is it so important for the users?
Thank you, Marcos. Thank you, Els. Thank you to our consumers. It's really a pleasure to be here. And at Nova, we are very eager to work with you in the following years. So I'm the professor. I have to deliver a bit of theory here. But Marco basically explained. So this is basically, in a nutshell, the right to obtain and reuse data that you have provided to data controllers. But most importantly, it's the right to transmit and port data between controllers. It's a very, very important right because this is a fundamental right. And it's a fundamental right that basically it's crucial to attain the two objectives of the GDPR that, yes, probably everybody have heard about. And the two objectives are, first, control. The data are ours. We need to have tools to control the data. And this is crucial for consumer empowerment because this is not the only way we are going to rebalance Elena is here, the situation of the consumer vis-a-vis the big companies. So this is very important. And the second objective of the GDPR, which you also mentioned, is the need that we have that for data to flow. So it's very important that data flow for the digital single market, and we need to have the consumer, the subject, at the center of the digital single markets. And we need to give them tools to port, to transmit their data. That's absolutely crucial for the new economy. But the problem that we see right now is this is very much a very theoretical right because we know that the right to access probably has been used a lot of times. Maybe Elena has some numbers to talk about later on. Probably you have heard about the right to be forgotten, also involving Google. We have millions of requests for the indexing. But regarding data portability, we still don't have, at least we don't have the perception that consumers and data subjects are really using data portability. And that is a problem. That is a problem for consumer rights. That is a problem for our economy because it's crucial that we port our data for switching between different service providers, for combining different services, to find providers that actually respect our rights as consumers and as data subjects. And of course, to allow new incomers to compete in the digital single market. So we need consumers to use this right in order to have a true digital single market EU-wide. Just to finish, why are we having these problems, and why do we see the Commission recently, when assessing how is the GDPR being applied, and they said, oh, regarding the data portability, we see a lot of potential, but we don't see the potential being achieved. And the reason for that relates to, in my view, two reasons. The first is technical. So we have the right to ask for our data, and the controller has to give us our data in a machine-readable format. So we need standardization in what regards the way that data controllers actually give data. And then, and this is the most problematic part, and this is also very important, which is interoperability. So we have the right for our data to be transmitted between data controllers. But then comes the problem that data controllers don't have the obligation to have equivalent technical systems. So this is right now the big problem, and the European Union is trying to tackle this problem with the new Data Act. So expect legal innovations in the future to really take a step forward and not having any more this conversation about law in the books and law in action, and actually see data portability to fulfill all of its potential. Thank you.
Now, thank you. This is really important. So we need to put the consumers at the center of the scene in this moment. We need to raise the awareness on this right, because it's a powerful tool, a powerful pro-competitive tool. But we need also the technical assistance from the provider, from the company. So I will turn to Helena Martins, the Head of Government Affairs and Public Policy in Portugal for Google, because I mean, you saw the audience. This is still a theoretical right after 4 years the GDPR entered into force. Are you dealing this in Google? Is this something really important for you?
Thank you for the question and for inviting us to be here and for the partnership. So data portability has been a priority for Google for many years, even before GDPR existed, even before the right to data portability existed. Actually, we created a tool which is called Google Takeout in 2011. And this is because we understood that users want to be free to choose different services without being concerned if they're going to lose their contacts, if they're going to lose their photos, if they're going to lose their emails. So we created this tool back in 2011. Right now, you were talking about numbers and how often this tool is being used. We have an average of exports per month at around 5 million exports, which is quite of a lot of I would say, usage. But of course, we see that there is still a lot of room of improvement in terms of awareness. I would also say that one of the things that is a huge concern for us is that this tool, this takeout tool, is used in a safe way, because we are talking about a lot of sensitive information. So the way that we built Google Takeout is that it's actually safe by design. So whenever a user wants to export the data or download their data, we send first we ask the user to re-authenticate. Second, we send the user a notification that their data is being exported or downloaded. We also we have a feature that the user can sign up to, which is basically a delay feature. So once a user, let's say, I want to download my emails, it actually takes some time for it to start to try to mitigate unauthorized access of accounts. And of course, the data is always encrypted. But we also know, and we are very aware, that not everyone has a device with big enough storage to save this data, or they don't have high-speed internet access. So we've been working with other companies like Apple, Meta, Microsoft to develop a system where a user can very easily and seamlessly transfer their data from service to service. This project is called Data Transfer Project. It's actually an open source project. And the great thing about this project is actually any business, any user, any citizen, any organization can sign up and actually have their own data portability approach or tool. So this is one of the things that we've been working on. And I also think that it goes very in line with what Francisco shared before about creating standards for data transfers. We believe that this is very important. And I'll finalize by saying 3 things that we believe when we are talking about data portability needs to be taken into account. One of the things, and I think it's going to be something that we all believe and share, is that the user needs to be in the center. We really need to empower users in providing the option that if they want to use a different service, or if they just want to have their data in their own device, that's a possibility. And that, of course, it's an important thing to consider, which is the standardization of the most common data types that are out there. The second thing is exportability. What do I mean by that? Is that if a service wants to be able to receive information, it should also be able to export their data. And the third one is safety. As I said, this is very important when companies and services are thinking about data portability, that safety is considered from the first day.
But just if you can, how far we are from having, let me say, a button, for example, on Gmail, and I decide, okay, I want to transfer my entire email to another provider. I just push the button and it's done. How far we are from that?
I think from the big companies, I would say we're not at all far from that. I think it's possible to do it even today. But I think it's an effort that the whole industry really needs to commit.
So basically we need technical standards to do this,
Absolutely.
I suppose. Okay,
Absolutely.
And that's when the consumers come into place. I think so I will turn to my colleague Els Brueggemann, the head of policy enforcement at Euroconsumers, because we must be sincere. The role of consumer organization has changed a lot due to the challenges of the digital economy. So the role of the consumer association has evolved, and maybe it's time to think about the consumers organization also as data intermediaries. So is there any kind of role for the consumer organization so to provide the consumers a kind of digital give back from this data they provide to the companies?
Well, thank you, Marco. Yeah, you put your finger right on the right spot. I think no one here, no one in the entire Web Summit will disagree when I say that data has a lot of value and a lot of potential. I mean, we call it the new gold for a reason. Although, if I have a look at my energy bill from now on, we might need to call it the new liquid gas or the new electricity. No, jokes apart, whoever holds the data has a lot of power, but also the potential to do something good, to do something great, to innovate. And let's not forget that in many cases, these data, they come from consumers, they belong to consumers, and that actually puts them in a very powerful position, in a driving seat to push for value, to push for innovation that really answers to their needs. But of course, for them to be able to play this role, they need to be in charge. They need to be in control. They need to be able to say who has access and who doesn't, and under what conditions. And when they do agree to share it, they should get a fair part of the value created in return. So really, the data economy has catapulted the meaning of consumer power to a whole other level. And wherever consumers go, that's where also consumer organizations need to be. Also for us, digitalization has not only changed the way we look at consumer protection and consumer empowerment, but to be quite honest, it has also challenged us as consumer organization. Because if we want to make it work for consumers and we want to make the best out of this data economy, then as a consumer organization, we not only need to make sure that there is a trustworthy framework, so privacy needs to be in place, the data need to be secured, but as a modern, forward-looking consumer organization, we also want to and we need to empower consumers to use their data, take it away to somewhere else, really push for that value, and really become an active player in this new data economy. But you know, managing data, it's not an easy thing. Also, I struggle. You know, keeping an overview, who has access, who hasn't, and definitely getting value in return is not an easy task. It is not someone that most of us can take upon next to, you know, doing your day job and taking care of the kids in the evening. But with new legislation coming up, like for example the Data Act or the European Health Data Space, this need is becoming more and more concrete. So if we want to take away a little bit of the burden of consumers, but also to unlock the collective potential of these consumer data, then I think that consumer organizations 2.0, they need to step in and they need to explore how they can become some kind of an in-between, some kind of a data broker, as you mentioned. Now, I know it sounds easier than it is, and between the theory and the practice, there's an ocean in between. I'm pretty aware of that, but I think for consumer organizations to be relevant for the future, we should at least give it a try, test it, and if you ask me, we should just do it.
No, thank you. So absolutely, there is a huge space for collaboration and dialogue between companies, civil society, and consumer organization. This project that we launched together as a keyword, the power of dialogue, exactly because we believe in the dialogue, on a multi-stakeholder dialogue. But the time now has come to announce the winner of our third edition of My Data is Mine. So I think that I can ask to come on stage to our winner, Matteo Nebiai. Matteo is a PhD student at King's College in London, and he presented a paper with the title Intermediaries Do Matter, Voluntary Standards and the Right to Data Portability. So Matteo, please come on stage. So here is the beautiful award. And I mean, what I found really interesting in your paper is the fact that you stress that this right to data portability didn't come out suddenly in the GDPR, but it relies on a long tradition of private regulation. So I think this is pretty interesting because we all think that this is something completely new that was established for the first time in 2016. Instead, there is a different scenario, and it's an interesting one. So for those of you who are interested in this paper, you can already download it on the CP site. So if you go to cp-project.org, you can download the paper of Matteo. But please, Matteo, just a couple of words about your paper and why you think that private regulation is so important for this issue.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity and for the award. Should I stand?
Yeah.
All right.
If you brought
me a chair,
please stay.
Okay. Basically, the paper was born from a very simple question. So the question is, how do companies implement the right to data portability? And this calls another question. So how companies implement the GDPR as a whole? And usually when we think about companies implementing the law, we think about the companies reading the provisions of a GDPR and trying to apply them. But actually what I observed is that there's a second case. And this case is when more than one company, a group of companies, try to build a private standard. So they choose to implement some additional rules, and this is what we call private regulation in political science, and they implement an additional layer of rules. So what I tried to search is how many of these initiatives are actually established in the European Union? How many of private standards, private protocols were implemented in the European Union between 2000 and 2020? So what I found is that there were like 23 schemes, 23 private standards that were implemented in the European Union. And I think what is interesting, there are two features I would like to mention. The first one is that data portability private schemes were established way before the GDPR was even drafted. So companies were trying to give this opportunity, to give these options to consumers way before the GDPR was even drafted. And the second interesting feature, in my opinion, is that the majority of these initiatives are from for-profit companies. And this, of course, is a very business-related reason. But I think, and this is an open question, maybe a and a stronger interaction with public regulators may actually benefit the way these schemes comply with the law? So this, of course, is a very open question, and I leave this to the panel and to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Matteo. So the time has come to leave. Thank you all for your attention, and let's give a big applause to Matteo for the winning of this year.